don't quite understand this, or maybe are conservative, maybe brought up in a different way, don't understand this. Don't see why it should be highlighted in this way. So it creates that division, it creates that controversial argument, and if you're not standing on the right side, which is politically correct side, you won't last very long.
Look, I mean, the thing is, the whole...
And of course, political correctness is just a version of looming Marxism.
Yeah, well, look, the whole Black Lives Matter thing, which has seemed to have flowed to other countries. And I don't think people even actually really understood what its original concept actually was. And, I mean, if you think about it, Black Lives Matter was started in 2014, and it was really against police brutality. And, people wouldn't even, when I say the word Ferguson, it was a small town in Missouri where it started, where someone actually died. And not that you condone anything that happened to George Floyd and why he died and how the policeman behaved. And actually, did he get his comeuppance? Absolutely. But you've also got to consider that actually George Floyd wasn't a model citizen either, nor was the guy who actually died in Ferguson a model citizen. So even though it happened and how it happened should not be condoned, it actually has, and it has actually had implications. The policeman is getting the just treatment by the law. He's lost his job. He's likely to go to prison. And not every policeman is bad. Even if you pick that category in 5%, which could potentially be racist or whatever, you can't put them all in the same. You can't put them all in the same bag.
No, you can't.
Look, I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Again, I'm not a racist by any means, but what I always questioned when I saw the George Floyd moment was if that had been a white person who had his neck with the knee on for 9 minutes, would that have gone viral? Would that have been highlighted in any way near as it was with him? And then the other question I've got is, why did it become a racist issue? At any point was his skin being mentioned? You're doing this because I'm a black man. Can you stop doing it, please? I didn't get that point. So was it automatically assumed that because he was black and that the policeman was white, then that was a racist issue?
And look, and a lot of things is white people who are probably making comments like that are really in some ways fearful of their own identity. In terms of actually where are they going to stand in all this? Are they going to get the same level of treatment that many of them actually fought for other people of other races and things like this? So where do they stand? Or are they going to be held responsible for things that actually happened hundreds of years ago, in effect? It's like saying, actually, if your father commits murder or something, should you be held responsible for his crime?
But one thing to add to the statues that you were talking about right in the beginning is, if we're looking at Black Lives Matter and we're now bringing down all the statues that are even slightly or indirectly linked to slavery, then are we looking at all the other movements that were from whatever other regimes in the past, and do we then take down all the other statues as well, or where does it stop? Where's the line? I mean, I don't understand.
Are you going to change the name of Washington DC? Or are you going to change the name of every American school with the name Washington in it?
And in fact,
or are you going to change the name of Washington State?
And in fact, as I commented before, who is the power that allows the worst atrocities to happen and earthquakes, i.e. God or Allah? And our church is just about to be razed to the ground. And in fact, although I thought this was intellectually too far for the average activist, apparently some statues and idols have been defiled on this basis now.
Anyway, how long do we actually have left before?
Enough to ask
couple of minutes.
Alexei a brief question about the main reason why he's here. Because you and I were having a mentoring session yesterday, and we hit a point where you said a penny had dropped, and so I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about that, because this is something that plays on a lot of people's minds, and is one of the problems in the modern capitalistic society. Go ahead.
Ooh, that's a hell of an introduction. I think going back to the conversation we had yesterday, I think that's how it started. It was a case of the career versus what's important. So I think the conversation we were having was the conditioned upbringing of the, I need to go up the ladder, become a whatever CEO, whatever you've been conditioned to do over the last 30, 40 years, because that's the definition of being successful. Irrespective if it's actually fulfilling your potential or what that potential is, you should be the highest position on the ladder. That means you're successful, versus actually the penny dropping, as you've just eloquently said, the shutdown, or the lockdown, sorry, should I say, when I was 10 weeks away from my family, and until recently I was commuting every week, working as I do now in London, which I was originally born in, and my family still live in the Czech Republic. And that then, the penny has just dropped as to really, really what's important. Is it that career, or is it actually being with your family? And it's actually irrelevant what you really do, because actually without being next to them or near them or there for them, it's nothing else matters. Nothing else matters apart from that. But then we are conditioned in modern society to be selfish. And then we're going back to the definition of happiness, which you've covered a few times on your podcast. What makes you happy? Is it enjoying what you do 10 hours a day? Should that be your right as a human being, to actually love what you do? You spend most of your life doing it. But then is that being selfish when I'm now working away from my family every week? Is that the wrong... I'm being supported completely by my wife and my 2 kids. However, the penny dropped because I thought, well, you know what? Actually, it's great that I can do what I'm doing now. I love what I do. I'm good at what I do. But actually, the coronavirus, a positive that's come out of it, my penny dropped because I thought, hang on a minute. As good as this is, doing my job, working in the country that I was born in, the country that I can speak fluently in English, it's not that important.
Actually, it's an interesting word when you use the word selfish. Actually, because
that's another.
Because it's putting yourself first-ish, just a little bit first
for my family,
for your family. It doesn't mean selfish, which means you sacrifice one thing for you tread on people on just to get what you want all the time. It's putting yourself a little bit-ish first sometimes, and again that's a sliding scale, and this actually opens to some interpretation. But why shouldn't we put ourselves first a little bit, whether it is for our family? In some ways, other people would actually want to see their career as being selfish, in terms of putting their career first for themselves a little bit, whether it's for their own significance or their own identity or whatever. Do you have any interpretation to that? Does that make sense, by the way?
Yes, it does. I think, as you say, it's a very interesting word. Selfish action really means considering yourself in isolation. That's effectively all it means. But being selfish doesn't make you happy. That's the other thing. So people who consider themselves in isolation won't make themselves happy. They just think they will. So what it is, it's about the seeking of your dopamine hit, of your instant gratification. And as we said many times, that doesn't make you happy. Or seeking of a goal, that doesn't make you happy. And the trouble with goals is you're willing to suffer for them, and when you get them, it's often an anticlimax. It is the journey, the direction that's important. And the feeling that you're achieving something that is good for you and those important to you, and of course that's your moral code, isn't it? Where you hold yourself to a higher moral standard for yourself and for the important people around you. As you said, you say your sister rather than your best friend. Go ahead, Alexi, you want to say something?
No. I'm just thinking about you're hitting on happiness, but the one thing what part of my penny dropping conversation that we had yesterday was you hit, as usual, the nail on the head when we were talking yesterday. Was I had to go through this in order for the penny to drop. Now I left a so-called great job, working in the same country as my family, who are still there and very happy as well, and I'm happy with this balance for the moment, but I know that this needs to end in a certain amount of time, whether that be a year or 2 years or 3 years or whatever. This cannot last forever, and I now know that. But if I hadn't have gone through this, then that last 5% piece in that puzzle wouldn't have been complete, and it would always be what if and should I have, and so on and so forth. But actually, if you look back, you get to the age of 80 years of age and you look back on your life, or sorry to say, it's your moment and you're in a box and people are coming to your funeral, what are they going to say about you? Are they going to say, oh yeah, so this guy was a fantastic CEO of that company, wonderful? Or are they going to say he was a good dad, he was a lovely husband? And I can tell you 99 or 95 sometimes it's going to be the latter.
Well, look, I mean, you've got to consider when Margaret Thatcher decided to become Prime Minister, there was a level of sacrifice she actually had to make.
Her kids.
Was it to become a good mother or to become a good Prime Minister? And she actually had to make a choice because she couldn't spread herself too thin. And I think even if you actually have actually heard her kids, and I'm sure they've been very public about it, she wasn't a particularly great mother. And they were
never there.
Absolutely. And that is, I think that's actually quite a common scenario, but particularly in the UK.
The difficulty is, of course, that as Alexi said, they're not going to say you were a great CEO, but just before you took the mic off him, I was going to say, well, unless you discover the cure for cancer, in which case, of course, you did a great service for humanity, but you still might have been a god-awful dad or mother. But that is unbelievably rare. It is so rare that it's not even worth thinking about.
Yeah, but you also, I think what's important to highlight in this is, and I can only talk obviously from my experiences, you need to be happy in yourself, happy with who you are, happy with the decision you make. And I always said to myself and to my kids, if I was to do anything in my life, I've never done anything I don't want to do. Now, there's a lot of people in society, now we talked about I think 97% of people have a job and 3% choose, or something along those lines. Most people do what they, in inverted commas, have to do to get through the week, to get through the month. I do what I love to do. Now, I'm a very, very, very lucky man, but most people aren't. So it's. I think.
Realised, haven't you?
But you need to be true to yourself, and we're going back to being noble and having integrity. Now, I've always done things because I see them as being it's me, and it's doing the right thing for my family, who always come first. People will say Alexi's a family man. He's a genuine guy. I've always will be that way, and I stick to those principles. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not popular.
Interesting what you said. You're doing what you love to do, but you still view that as inconsequential to being with your family.
And I think this is something...
Which is the penny dropping moment.
Yeah, and I think this is not just necessarily directed to Alexi, but to a lot of people. It's about defining...
Alexi's mumbling correct.
Correct, yeah. It's about defining what your purpose what your purpose is, actually. And is your purpose your family, or is your purpose your career?
Well, you see,
but the thing is, it's also about finding that balance between the two, isn't it?
As Jordan Peterson says, the 2% of jobs are careers, and actually CEOs usually have exceptionally dysfunctional family lives and have made terrible sacrifices. So they are not models of happy people by any means. And when you have films made of Oppenheimer and things like that, where the Western lie is you can achieve what you want and dream and so on. The fact is, it is so incredibly rare that this happens. That is why books and films are made. But the average person, however, doesn't stand a hope of getting to that level. And for the average person, it is a matter of their close relationships and their family.
Okay, guys, I think we're going to actually wrap it up there. I think this one's come to an end. Guys, if you've got any questions, please get in touch, whether it's about purpose, whether it's about the word nobility.
That wraps us up, doesn't it? Putting your close relationships and family first is the noble thing to do.
Well, thank you very much for that. Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you next week. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.